Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Canada's Entrepreneur. Joining me today is Andrew Hendry, who is CEO and founder of Ignite Connections. Thanks, Andrew, for joining us today.
Thanks very much for having me.
Okay, we're going to talk about launching a business and launching it in the States. But before we get into that, I want maybe if you could give us an update, an overview, Andrew, on what Ignite Connections is and what you folks do.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a bit about it. We're a really simple company. We work in the real estate space primarily in the U.S. market, and we prospect on behalf of real estate agents to get them more opportunity to meet more people and close more sales. The way we do that is we pick up the phone and we just do things old school, back to basics, and we make cold calls and all sorts of phone calls on behalf of our clients to introduce them to new people.
Now you're based in Toronto, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're in Toronto, Canada, but most of our business is operated down in the U.S., or most of our businesses comes from the U.S., I should say.
Okay. Now, an interesting thing about the business itself, it was launched in the U.S., and I understand that was a strategic decision to do that. Tell me the why behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as an entrepreneur, there's so many things, as I'm sure your audience will know, that are not in your favor and not in your control, and the odds are certainly sometimes against you as an entrepreneur starting a new business. So I think it's important to leverage your strengths when launching a company and taking on a venture like this. There's again so many odds that play against you that wherever you can get an edge, I think you should take it. And so for me, that edge was my experience. I've been working at a tech company in the real estate space for many years that was similar to Ignite, founded in Canada, but worked primarily in the US real estate market. And so I knew the market, I had experience in that market, I knew the people, I knew the clients, and I knew the problems that they were facing in their particular markets across the country. And so I knew how to sell my idea in the context of the marketplace in the US. So for me, it didn't really make sense to start a business in a whole new market at that depth, even though that market would have been in my backyard.
Hmm. So, if Canadians are looking to launch a business, tell me why they should think maybe global first when embarking on that journey.
It's a really great question. I think it's an important thing to consider. There's a recent study done. I think it was a Randstad study that was talking about how over just over 50% of Canadians are thinking about starting a business in 2026.
Wow.
And that's a lot of businesses that you might not see come to fruition. I'm sure there's some that are going to be great, wonderful enterprises. But my advice for that and to your question is to think borderless from day one. Start where the market is and not necessarily where you live. Right. And
Yeah.
I think the Canadian advantage specifically for the borderless business goes a lot farther than just our likability
Yeah.
internationally on the stage. OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Growth, actually puts Canada at the top of the list for the most educated workforce. And so I think it's really interesting strategically to have what is considered the most educated workforce on our side in the workplace, while going after a market that I mean, beneficially, the US dollar is really strong when you bring it back to Canada. So those two things in practice give us quite an advantage in the market.
Yeah. Can you tell me, your thoughts around, sort of skills for entrepreneurs and uh, what do you think about sales and is it a make or break thing for entrepreneurs?
I really love talking about this, and I really love talking about the blend between entrepreneurship and sales. It's one and the same. And so I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that have such incredible ideas and such incredible business concepts that never get out, specifically because they maybe lack the skills in terms of sales. And so when we talk about, even the future of work in general, I think it's such an important piece that same Randstad study talked about how sales is the number one surging industry right now. It's the number one most in-demand job is sales. And I
Wow.
think that's a really interesting thing when you blend that in with entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship at its foundation is sales. You're selling before you have anything to sell. You're going to need to sell your idea to somebody, whether that's your first employee, whether that's your first investor. You're going to need to sell from the beginning.
Yeah. You know what's just popped into mind too, like sales is you're also selling yourself. right?
Oh, constantly, and I even being in Manhattan this week, I had the opportunity to be on a panel, talking about exactly this, how sales is still so fundamental in the workplace, especially amidst the buzz of AI and all the technology nowadays. And from day one, before you have a product you're selling yourself, for me to get up in front of my staff every day, for me to get up in front of 60 people that I'm blessed to have working with our company. I have to resell our whole vision every day, and I have to be the vessel for that sale. They have to believe in me before anything else. And so, to your point, I think that's a really, really excellent thing to talk about is you need to be selling yourself.
Yeah. Let's talk about AI. Obviously, the buzzword, the
Hot topic.
buzz thing these days anywhere, right? And let's talk about future proofing against AI, and what does that mean? And can we be more human than less, even with this beast upon us?
Such an important thing to consider. I'm glad we're going to talk a little bit about it because I think there's such an uncertainty around it in so many ways. Especially when you get into some of the older demographics, but even in the younger demographics, there's so much. It's so tumultuous right now because it's so new. It's on such an upswing. And from our perspective, what I can speak to is as I mentioned, the future of work for us is more human, not less. AI is a tool, and it can handle the busy work so that people can do what we do best, that build trust, build relationships, and communicate, which goes back to your point about sales. Um, the I read something the other day. I think it was ServiceNow. They did a 2024, I think, World of Work study. And it was talking about how Canadian workers spend 45% of their time doing menial office tasks. So almost two plus days of their work week is spent doing the busy work that AI is actually really, really good at. That's the stuff it's really, really good at. And so I think, for the future of work, it's leveling up that competitive advantage that makes us human, which is exactly what you and I are doing right now. And we're not having an AI interview. You're not AI, I don't think, and I'm not AI. We're having a relationship and a conversation here, and I think that is such a fundamental aspect to the future of how business is going to be done. So AI, to answer your question, I think for those who can leverage it as a tool to free up that 40 or 45% of their time, to fill that time then with more of the things that people do best, those are the people that are really going to thrive in the world of tech.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Canada in general.
Sure.
And how unique it is with its geography and its talents, and uh, how does that fit into, the whole competitive advantage globally?
That's a really, really good question. I think as I mentioned, our baseline is just to start thinking borderless from day one. Technology for so long has bestowed upon us the ability to connect with people across the world immediately. Even for you and I, you're in Calgary, I'm in Toronto, we're thousands of maybe not thousands, yeah, thousands of kilometers apart, I think. So it's not just a matter of the technology piece, but I think it's interesting. Canadians on the world stage immediately were nice. You know what I mean? We're nice, we're personable, and that's usually the case. You get a Canadian and plop them in the middle of the U.S. and we're the nice person in the room. And
Yeah,
so I think it's for entrepreneurs in Canada, it's so advantageous to put our strengths on display on a world stage to be people who, again, not just are nice and kind and also highly educated and are ambitious and hard workers. There's so much about Canadian entrepreneurship and the Canadian workforce that I think can be put on display through entrepreneurs by hiring talent here locally and putting them on display on a world stage with a more international brand.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, when you look in general, Andrew, when you look at entrepreneurship in Canada today,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts of where it's at? And it's a tough thing to do, right? And especially in this day and age with all the challenges out there with the costs and supply chain stuff, and then
Yeah.
obviously tariffs. What advice would you give entrepreneurs if they want to get into being one?
Yeah, that's I've had the pleasure of being an entrepreneur for 6 or 7 years now. So
Okay.
um, I certainly have been through my share of ups and downs so far. Lots of downs for sure, but some ups along the way as well. Um, I guess two pieces of my advice. The first thing would be to align whatever it is that you want to do in this world with your values. There's going to be so many times, especially early on, that you're going to be challenged to continue.
Yeah,
And you're going to be really put in the spotlight of, are you sure you want to do this? Because it's really hard. You're going to face so many emotional challenges, so many fiscal restraints, so many belief issues. And there's going to be days and weeks and months where you're going to think to yourself, try as you might to avoid these thoughts. Is it worth it? Am I doing the right thing? Should I just quit? And I think if you can align what you're doing for the world and what you're putting into the world and your entrepreneurial venture with your values as a person, I think it really helps to push through those hard days, weeks, months, and sometimes even years to be doing the right thing because you believe at your core in what it is that you're doing. Not just that you believe it can make you a lot of money, not just that you believe it can impact the economy, but that you really believe from a values standpoint what it is you're doing.
yeah.
I think my second quick piece of advice there, going back to what you mentioned earlier, was the sales piece. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are really so hyper intellectual. They're so smart. Some of the smartest people I've ever talked to in my life.
Mm.
And then you put them on a phone call in front of an investor and they just they don't know what to do. It's just this yeah, exactly. They freeze up and it's very natural. It's a high stakes thing, especially in the absence of training or preparation from a standpoint of communication. But um, I would say to entrepreneurs, get really comfortable with the idea that you're going to have to sell a lot. You're going to do a lot of sales for a long time, and arguably you're never going to stop. So get comfortable with that piece.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks so much, Andrew, for joining us today.
Mario, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, that was Andrew Hendry, who is CEO and founder of Ignite Connections in Toronto. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us today.